really proud of the work that I do in the treasurer's office, but the title that I'm most proud of is mom right now. And I'm mom to a 6-year-old son. And, the hardest thing really for me is balancing both being a mom and in my professional life. I feel very lucky that I do work in a place that values a work-life balance, and it has programs and policies that allow for more work-life balance, like the flex time program. But it still is, a challenge for me as a mother that works outside the home. Oftentimes, my husband and I have to balance the drop-offs and pickups. And sometimes I have to, adjust my schedule and say, I have to leave by a certain time in order to pick up my son, or my husband and I have to adjust our schedules in order to balance both of our professional needs. And I think for women, a lot of times we take on more of the parental responsibilities. So I think that's really the biggest challenge for me.
I'm happy to report that this question, it was kind of difficult for me to come up with. Nothing jumped right out at me that had been, so difficult that it was in the forefront of my mind. I do remember kind of early on at the licensing board, I think I wasn't too young, but I guess I was younger than my predecessor and others that had come before me in that position. So I do remember someone being upset with, we had lots of constituents would come into the office, or license holders would come into the office and looking for help or to look at files. And someone wasn't happy with the staff and asked to see, he said, I want to see the board's attorney. And so someone called me in my office and, they were very nervous. Said, we have someone out here. He's not very happy. Can you come out and just talk to him? And as soon as he saw me, he got very upset and he said, I said I wanted to see the board's attorney. And I don't know if he didn't expect me to be a woman or if he didn't expect me to be as young as I was. And so I just very nicely said to him, I am. And he was, oh goodness, was he embarrassed. Other than that, the only other thing that I could think of was something that's not really specific to me, but I feel like, the pull between being a mom and being a working mom is something that's definitely a challenge. You're torn between, like I said, being the mom and then performing your job, and which kind of leads us into the next question. I don't want to jump ahead, but I think Treasurer Goldberg has provided a really wonderful environment where you can be both, and you can excel at your job, but you can also feel that you're being a good mom too. Her family friendly vision and her benefits kind of make that a possibility, and that's really I know it's really appreciated across the board.
So as a woman, I feel like a lot of women do, sort of intense pressure to be liked and to be likable. And I feel this pressure really intensely because I was bullied growing up. It was a pretty intense experience, and I actually did have to change schools as a result. And so for me, I was never the popular kid by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. And so being liked and wanting to be likable has been a challenge for me. And professionally, it's a challenge too, because with every sort of increased responsibility that you have, there are increased opportunities for you to make decisions that folks may not agree with. And you're going to have to push back in order to do your job. And so I've really had to, become comfortable being uncomfortable in that, and sort of work through, how I can feel strong and likable at the same time, and sort of how they're not necessarily mutually exclusive.
Coming from both the science field and the legal field, both of those areas are underrepresented by women, especially. There's a huge lack of women scientists and of color and lawyers of color, especially Black women. So in both those areas, I've experienced sort of an uphill battle, just being often one of the only in the room. One of the experiences I remember moving back to Boston and practicing in trial court here was everyone mistaking me for my client and not being a lawyer. that it was surprising to me because I'd already practiced for a few years, so I was comfortable and confident. So, I didn't feel new, so that's why they weren't mistaking me for my client. But it happened so many times. So I think just being that isolated feeling, and also just that constantly having to assert yourself as I am the scientist or I am the attorney in the room, has been a challenge.
As a woman, I certainly have faced, gender bias and sexism both in my personal life and professionally, in many different regards. But I think now would be a good opportunity to talk about motherhood, because I think a lot of working moms don't talk about it at work, unfortunately, only because there's still, despite protections for moms and women in the workplace, there can still be biases and repercussions for moms. So I can talk about, for me specifically, single motherhood. I'm the sole provider for 2 humans, but I need to feed and house and clothe and nurture. And one challenge I faced has been access to affordable and safe childcare. So this, of course, has impacted both my family and my career in very real, measurable, and sometimes detrimental ways. You hear professional women and families talk a lot about work-life balance and spending time at home and spending time at work, and that's a major aspect of working and raising a family, for certain. But a major component of that is childcare specifically. It's the safety of your kid. It's peace of mind and the ability to not just show up physically to work and pursue your professional dreams and goals, but to be able to focus and do a good job, right? Because and not do a distracted job. It's that to have the peace of mind. So this challenge, it's spanned my academic career as well. When I showed up to Bunker Hill Community College, literally with my kid on my hip for class sometimes. And then, later at UMass Boston, my daughter would be coloring with crayons in a lecture hall with me. And then even for law school, she was a little bit older then, she was 9, but she was quite familiar with the, Suffolk Law Library and, where to find all the vending machines. But, even to this day, I do, not often. I consider myself very lucky, but there's still sometimes a scramble to find coverage. Early dismissal days for school or holidays, and over the summer, summertime is a nightmare for working parents.
To be really frank, I'm a mom. I have a little boy. He's 7 years old now, and I think being a working mom is probably one of the most challenging titles I've held. And I think that is something that's unique to being a woman and being a parent. It's one of the challenges is being able to work and also be there for your kid and support their growth, but also nurturing your own growth, because I'm really young. I had my son at 18. So we've kind of been growing together, and I think that's been one of the most beautiful challenges, but definitely not the easiest. So any issues relating to like moms and women empowerment and even being a role model for other working moms is like, that's my goal. That's what I always am trying to be better, because I want to be a good example.